How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? In this video, we talk about the top iPhone XS and XS Max features. So without further ado, let's have a look. Alright, so here is the iPhone XS Max 512GB model in gold. We're going to unbox that right now. Now I chose the XS Max because it is my phone of choice. I prefer the bigger phone, and the XS and XS Max are virtually identical outside of the obvious screen size differences. So we take off the top there, remove the documentation packet, and there is the XS Max. We'll just lift that out of the box. We'll get back to that here in a second. Now let's focus on what's inside as far as accessories are concerned. Of course, you have your ear pods there, your headphones, and you have, yes, a 5-watt charger. I just can't get over the fact that Apple would still include this rinky-dink charger after all these years, even though the phone supports fast charging. It's ridiculous, and it just seems like a nickel and diming, to be honest. And speaking of that, there is no longer that Lightning to 3.5mm adapter. They've nixed that as well inside, so you have to purchase that separately if you want to connect traditional headphones. And there's also a lightning cable inside the box as well. Alright, so here is the documentation package, and inside here you'll get a getting started guide, which is right here. So it just gives you some basic tips on using the phone. There's a front and back section. Helpful if you're a brand new user to the iPhone, but I imagine that most of you guys and gals won't be using that at all. There's also a SIM eject tool, which is convenient, and then you have some regulatory information here, front and back. And as we always like to joke, the most important thing in the box, of course, the Apple stickers. Now let's talk about features. One of the biggest features is the fact that the iPhone XS and XS Max share the same exact internals. So you get the same processor, the same cameras. You no longer have to compromise if you prefer the smaller device. That's nice. Now, arguably the biggest new upgrade to this year's iPhones is the inclusion of this, the XS Max, with its massive 6.5-inch edge-to-edge display. It is a massive screen. It's a bigger screen than the iPhone 8 Plus in a slightly smaller body. So like I said, it's a massive screen. It's great for reading the web. It's great for playing games. It's great for watching movies. It's nice for composing photos and composing videos, and it's really nice when applications take advantage of it with that 2-up interface. To be honest, I've never really been a huge fan of traditional gold, but I have to say that on the iPhone XS and XS Max, it looks great. It is, hands down, in my opinion, the best color for this generation of iPhone. I mean, there have been other gold iPhones in the past, but having it with stainless steel makes all the difference in the world. It actually looks like something that I wouldn't even want to put a case on. And I honestly think I'm just going to go caseless because I like the finish that much. And even the rear of the phone looks really good with that updated gold color. The iPhone XS and XS Max also get brand new live wallpapers. You get these bubble wallpapers. These aren't planets. We actually gave you a sneak preview of all three of these on our Instagram page, so if you haven't subscribed to us on Instagram, be sure to do that because we always post really cool stuff there. Admittedly though, live wallpapers are sort of gimmicky, but I think of all the ones we've seen thus far, these are the best. And speaking of going caseless, Apple says that the iPhone XS and XS Max features glass that is the most durable on any smartphone ever. That means it's less prone to scratches and cracks, but I'm just going to have to take their word for it because I'm certainly not going to drop my phone on video. Now here's something very exciting. The new iPhones have a bigger wide-angle camera sensor. What exactly does that mean? Well, let me explain it using an illustration. This is the iPhone X sensor, 12 megapixel sensor. This is the iPhone XS sensor, 32% larger, still 12 megapixels. So what does that mean? It means each individual pixel is actually larger, and that means the sensor can gather more light naturally. That means less processing on the image and just an overall cleaner image. So let's explore, let's pixel peep a little bit comparing the iPhone X, last year's iPhone flagship, and the new iPhone XS side by side. So you can see right off the bat, you're seeing there's more artifacts there on the iPhone X side because less light, means more processing, and therefore you're going to have a less accurate image, one that's perhaps a little more grainy. And you can see it, for instance, the word resist there. Compare the two. That actually is in sort of a gray color. It looks more gray on the iPhone XS side. It looks almost black on the iPhone X side. So a less accurate image, more grain there on that image as well. Now let's scroll up to the top and let's look at the spray handle. See if we can zoom up there and find something that just really obviously stands out. I think we found it right here. So you can see right there, see the line where the handle portion meets the body? See how much more grainy it is on the iPhone X compared to the XS? So you have that nicer wide angle camera sensor, and that's going to be even better when combined with some of the other camera improvements. And one such improvement is with the True Tone flash. So I made sure the environment was dark here, maybe a little too dark, and I shot a photo using the True Tone flash on my iPhone X, and then I did the same thing with my XS, and let's just compare. So after looking at the iPhone X with the True Tone flash and then comparing that with the iPhone XS, the XS looks more natural. And here's another improvement that sort of flew under the radar. You now have 1080p 60 frames per second shooting capability with the front-facing true depth camera. Now you need to have your camera set to 1080p 60 frames per second in the settings app. Now normally when you go into the settings app and change those settings, you're thinking with the rear-facing cameras in mind. You're not really thinking about that front-facing camera. But what's interesting about the iPhone XS is that while you have that HD 1080p capability on the rear-facing camera, if you switch over to the front-facing camera, now that same profile, 1080p 60 frames per second, as you can see, applies to the front-facing true depth camera now as well. Smart HDR. This is, in my opinion, the most exciting feature camera-wise on the iPhone XS. Now look at this particular setup here. I have a very bright object, the light there, and I also have a very dark object, the HomePod speaker. And when I expose for either one of those, I either blow out the highlights or lose important shadow detail. This is the iPhone X. Now on the iPhone XS, Smart HDR uses a 4-frame buffer and secondary inner frames shot at different exposure levels. And the best parts of each frame are then combined to create one composite photo. And what's crazy is that all this is done on the fly unbeknownst to the user. So here are photos taken with the iPhone X. You saw how the highlights were blown out and the shadows lack detail. Now here on the iPhone XS, Smart HDR makes for a lot better image that accentuates both shadow and highlight detail. Another new iPhone XS exclusive feature is the ability to adjust depth of field in post. So if you take a portrait mode photo and you tap edit when viewing the photo, you get this new little slider right here. And this allows you to, on the fly, adjust the depth of field of that photo, and you actually see it change there on the screen. Now this certainly isn't the first app to do this, but to have that built natively into iOS is pretty cool. Now the iPhone has had stereo speakers, but up until now you couldn't record video in stereo directly from your iPhone and then play that back using those stereo speakers, but now you can. It's a little bit difficult to demonstrate in this video, but take my word for it, it does work. The stereo separation is actually pretty good. The iPhone XS and XS Max have 4 onboard microphones to help out with stereo capture. And another new feature is extended dynamic range. You can find that if you go to the camera app and you select 30 frames per second for either 720p, 1080p, or 4K. You'll see this little option here, auto low light FPS. What this does is it will automatically reduce the frame rate from 30 frames per second to 24 frames per second when encountering low light during video shooting. It does this dynamically on the fly, allowing for better low light videos. Thanks to an advanced secure enclave and better algorithms, the iPhone XS sports advanced Face ID, and that means Face ID unlocks faster. Notice the XS Max on the left? Unlocked before the 10. The 7nm A12 Bionic in the iPhone XS is a major new advancement for Apple chip design, but you'll have to look beyond pure speed because speed-wise, although faster than the A11, that's not what really stands out. For instance, here is a Geekbench comparison. The left side is the iPhone XS Max, the right side the iPhone X. Better performance with the XS Max for sure, however, it doesn't sport the type of gains we've seen in the past from Apple hardware. What you'll want to focus on here is pretty much everything else. Graphics performance, that neural engine with 8 cores, the enhanced ISP, better power efficiency. Apple's chip design is already world-class. They've proven they can be the fastest. So what they did this time around was improve other areas like with photography and videography. Think about it. That neural engine combined with the image signal processor updates allows for things like smart HDR, which changes the way you take photos, changes the way you compose photos for the better. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg. It's good to remember that it's not always about speed. I can remember a time when we were just thankful to have 2 gigabytes of RAM in an iPad, but now we have 4 gigabytes of RAM in an iPhone. That's nuts. But not just that, you now have the option of configuring a ridiculous amount of storage. Yes, 512 gigabytes of internal storage on the iPhone X and XS Max. And there's improved water and dust resistance. The iPhone XS and XS Max are now IP68 certified. So that means submerging in up to 2 meters of water for up to 30 minutes. You probably still shouldn't do that, but an occasional accident, a dunk in the sink, accidentally dropping your phone in the toilet probably won't spell the end for the device. It's even better this time around. And if you're ever in a really dusty environment, it's also better at keeping dust out as well. Now this feature hasn't launched just yet. It should be coming in a later iOS update, but now there's an eSIM inside the iPhone X and XS along with the standard SIM. That means you can have up to 2 lines on the same phone, which is something I've been wanting for a very long time. So that means say you have a business phone and a home phone, now you can combine those on the same device. And the XS now supports Gigabit-class LTE, so that means carrier aggregation for a fatter pipe, and then being able to stack multiple lanes of traffic simultaneously, that 4x4 MIMO. It also supports band 71, which is great for rural T-Mobile users. Now obviously the speed test that I'm showing you here isn't really that impressive at all, but again, it's going to depend on your carrier, where you're located. As you would imagine, there are lots of variables involved with cellular connectivity. Now, Apple touts faster wireless charging, but this doesn't appear to be any new technological upgrades. No, instead, it's the result of a tighter coil design inside the phone, which allows for better contact with the charger. And this was confirmed by Daring Fireball's John Gruber. Hey, I'll take any enhancement I can get. And last but not least, improved battery life. The iPhone XS gets an additional 30 minutes battery life compared to the iPhone X, and the iPhone XS Max gets an additional 1.5 hours of battery life compared to the iPhone X. So ladies and gentlemen, that has been a look at the top iPhone XS Max and XS features. Which ones are your favorites? Let me know down below in the comment section, and thumbs up if you appreciate this video. This is Jeff with the 9 to 5 Mac.